So, when students are talking about their classes, one of the classes that comes up the most frequently as when students are struggling with or want additional help with their study skills is math. So, that's what we're going to concentrate on today. How can you be better in your current or future math classes? First, we're going to talk about some study skills and some test-taking strategies, and most of these skills and strategies will apply to other courses, not just math, but we're going to touch on them here. We've already discussed that you need to study when you're alert. If you are a morning person, make sure that you are studying your most difficult classes in the morning. If you're an afternoon person, study then. We've already talked about that you need to ask questions when you have them. You need to create a review sheet. Now, you may think this as a cheat sheet, like if you could include examples or formulas, what would you write down? Now, you're not going to actually use this during the exam. I'm not saying go ahead and cheat. I'm saying this will help you study because you are reviewing the material as you are writing your own review, and you're committing it to memory by working with it again. Try to learn to retain. Don't remember just to forget. If you're trying to cram, you're trying to remember just long enough to do well on the exam. Rereading is not enough. Just rereading a passage or your notes or the problems you've already done, that's not going to cut it. You have to do more than that. You have to actively work with the material. And we're still early in the semester, so you may not have had tests yet in your classes, but if you have, review your previous tests. By now you have had previous assignments and worksheets or online assignments, prompts, whatever. Review those previous assignments because when we're talking about exams, the important material, it's all been covered on homework assignments and that type of thing previous to you taking the exam. You also want to make sure that you're engaging in the material. Like I said, rereading is not enough. If you're going to reread, then I want you to rewrite it and summarize it. Work through problems if you're doing math. Make connections, so concept maps. How do events in history lead up to the next major event in history? Like you couldn't have had World War II without the effects of World War I. Explain concepts aloud. Talk to yourself, talk to your dog, talk to your cat, talk to your siblings. Explain the concepts. If you're a visual person, put some visual representations in there, pictures, something to help you out, and reorder material by its importance. Again, general tips. Most of these apply to both online/remote learning and on-campus learning. So make sure that you keep these in mind for next semester or next fall. All assigned material is important. If your instructor is taking the time to assign it, and especially collect it for a grade, it's important. Treat the assignment seriously. Organize your assignments according to size, importance, and due date. I've been asking you guys to do this with your time management. Have the regular time to study, and then several of you received a comment in the assignment review, or when I did the assignment review and was grading, that you should write out all of your assignments for the week. Make sure that you schedule your due dates, but things that are going to take more time, make sure that you're scheduling them to have more time. If it's going to be a big project, chunk it. Do little pieces each day. And then you have to worry about your health. If you are too tired and you're trying to do an assignment, it's not going to work out well. If you're hungry, you're going to be concentrating on your tummy rumbling instead of the problem in front of you. If you're physically sick, obviously that's not good. You don't want to be having a migraine or vomiting while you're trying to study. And if you think you're going crazy, you probably are, just like the rest of us. We are all stressed out and worried and anxious, and we're all in this together. It's okay. We're going to make it through the other side, and we will have good times during our classes that will make it all worthwhile. Couple of unwritten rules for studying and taking your tests. Cramming and all-nighters are not useful. If you are doing good time management, you should not be cramming and pulling all-nighters. I pulled a total of 3 all-nighters, I think, during my undergraduate career, and each time I told myself, never again, because it is absolutely horrible. It will just make you exhausted when you walk into that midterm or that exam, and your brain will be all fuzzy and not focused. Partial credit. Most instructors will grade on partial credit. I'm not just talking math, even though that's a big one, but if you have a written or short answer exam, you will get partial credit if you write something relevant to the question down. Don't ever leave blanks on your exam. Prep for the testing conditions. This is more when you are on campus, but if you know that you are going to have a very, very quiet room, make sure that you are studying in a very, very quiet room. During the exam, you can ask for clarifications. You will not be able to ask professors, how do I do this? Because they'll tell you, I'm sorry, I can't tell you that. But you can ask questions like, is this what this problem is asking? Or in this direction, did you want us to round to 2 decimal points because it doesn't specify? Those type of things. Make sure that you do this privately. You want to raise your hand and call the instructor over. You don't want to shout out in the middle of an exam, because that is going to throw off the game of your fellow students, and it's not going to work well for them. And make sure that you provide the information requested. So if your psychology professor is asking about someone's ego and how that could affect their relationship with others, you're not going to talk about Schrodinger's cat, whether it is dead or alive. Okay, you want to concentrate on the question that they are being asked. Let's talk about math specifically now. And most of math is problem solving. And a bunch of the issues come up. Students will go, I'm fine when it's just numbers, or I'm fine when it's a straightforward problem. I do horrible when we have word problems or applications. So we're going to go over some of that as well. Regardless of what type of problem you have, I want you to read the problem carefully, especially if there are directions that specify besides just solve. Figure out exactly what they are asking you to find. So in a word problem, this is usually the last sentence of the problem. They want you to find blank. Draw a line through all information that you do not need. I know most of you have seen the word problems, and when you read them, it's like Charlie Brown's teachers reading them to you. It goes wah, 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 wah. Or maybe it all looks Greek. There's a whole bunch of information in word problems normally that is not relevant or necessary to actually solve what you are trying to solve. So draw a line through everything that you do not need in that word problem. Write down the relevant parts of the paragraph. So all the numbers that are included, what they're asking you to find. Set up the problem, letting your end game guide you. Always keep in mind, what am I trying to solve? What are they asking me to find? And then solve the problem like normal. If it wasn't an application or a word problem, and you just had these pieces of information to plug into a formula or a process, you could do it. Well, that's what you'll have after you take out the relevant parts of the paragraph or the word problem and get it all organized. At the very end, you need to make sure that you review your answer. Make sure it makes sense. So if they're asking you to find the degree Fahrenheit on a specific day, so they're asking for the temperature, and you somehow get 270 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're talking about a place on Earth, that is not going to be a valid answer. go back and look at your work. And also make sure that you write your solution, your answer, with units, or some instructors require that you explain your solution in a sentence. When you're studying for your math exams, a couple of things you should remember. You should be doing your homework every day. If it's assigned, remember that it is important. You need to be asking questions during lectures and after. And I know that a bunch of our math classes right now are asynchronous, where we're posting lecture videos, and you don't have to come to class unless you have a grade below a 75. I'm talking about all of our co-rec classes because that's what I teach. Other classes have something different, but you should be going to class, even if it's not required. Go in with questions. Make sure that you're asking them. Visit the learning labs. Right now, both the TSC tutors are online and the BrainFuse tutors are online. Remember, you have that BrainFuse tutoring assignment. Work through problems in your notes. So if you have a problem or an example in your notes, rewrite that problem on a clean sheet of paper. Close your notes. Solve that problem without looking at your notes. See if you can recreate everything that is in your very carefully written notes. Read the textbook. Every class has a textbook, whether or not you use it. So it's not like you've read it in class, most likely. And there are also example problems for you to follow step by step. Now, if you are in a co-requisite math class or a developmental math class, almost every single problem in your homework has a help me feature, which has either a video or a written example that will walk you through how to solve it. If you are using My Math Lab for a traditional STEM class, that will also have the help me feature where it will either walk you through it or give you a written example. The textbook, like I said, has example problems for you to follow step by step as well. There are all kinds of problems out there for additional work and for additional reference to help you learn the material. Khan Academy is an amazing resource. It's miniature lecture videos. I think the longest one I've seen is like 10 minutes maybe, and that's when it was several example problems all thrown into the one video. Normally they're like 3 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, and they have pretty much any math concept that you could think of. They even have a bunch of science. So if you're having difficulty with your science courses, go check out Khan Academy. Just Google it, you'll be able to find it. But do not use Mathway, Photomath, or other apps that solve the problems for you. That is cheating. If you write down your work, you have no idea how you got the work and you used a program, it's cheating. You're going to earn a 0 on the assignment. You will not be able to complete your exams, especially when you are on campus and have to use your own brain without any of your notes near you. Don't use those programs. Plan ahead, study, learn the material. Do the additional problems in the online homework, which I already brought up. Regardless of being in a CPS co-requisite course or a STEM math course, you have the option to do another problem exactly like the one you just did. And you can do it for just extra practice to make sure that you learn the material. If you're given a review, your professor really, really likes you because we don't have to give you reviews. And most of the time we will post an answer key. Do the problems yourself on the review and then look at the answer key. Don't just try to look at the answer key. If you're just skimming through the problems and how the professor solved them, you are not actively engaging in the material. You need to be able to do this yourself. The only way to complete problems in math on the exam is to have practice. And practice means that you work through the problems step by step with your own pen and pencil. Don't just try to read it. And don't use your notes to study. I know that sounds really, really weird, but what I mean by that is like in the last slide when I said write down the problem, close your notes, do the problem by yourself. That's what I'm referring to. We don't want to constantly reference our notes while we're trying to do review problems because you're using it as a crutch. You're not actively trying to learn and retain the material. You're trying to do what's called monkey see and monkey do. Can I recreate what's right in front of me? That's not what you're going to have on your exams, maybe right now in remote learning, but when we're on campus, you definitely will not have that. Simulate the exam and its conditions. So if you know that you are going to have an hour and a half to take the exam, give yourself an hour and a half to do the review. If you know that the professor is going to be incredibly strict, this being on campus and you can't have your phone, make sure that your phone's not there. If you can only use a certain type of calculator, make sure that you can use that certain type of calculator. Don't have any other resources available. Create a review sheet, like I said, doing the first or second slide. Go through the major formulas that you need to remember, go through example problems, main concepts, that type of thing. And most professors will not give you the formulas required for your exams. I would create flashcards with those required formulas. That way you can quickly memorize them and you can always take them out during commercials of your favorite show or just for a quick 5-minute review, or when you're on campus, when you're walking from one class to the other, or if you get to class early. Flashcards are wonderful, not just for math, but for pretty much any course you're in where you have to remember something. Handling math anxiety during exams. I cannot tell you how many times students have come up to me and go, I really know the material, I just freeze when I get to the exams. It's because you get in your own head and you think that it's going to be harder than it is, or you think that you don't know the material when you do. I just want you to breathe. When you first get the exam, or you're sitting down in class waiting for the exam, or you're waiting for it to be emailed to you or unlocked, breathe. Just breathe. If you've studied, you know the material. We're not going to try to throw all kinds of new stuff on the exams to you. We want to know that you learned all the topics we've already been covering in this unit. I would have a drink and gum or candy next to you if you are doing this on a computer, or with you when you are in class, because sometimes our mind needs just that little itty bitty break for everything to fall into into places. Let's try that again. To fall into place. It's like pieces of a puzzle. Okay, so if you start to get really overwhelmed, you stop, you get your water bottle, you take a quick drink, and then immediately go back and focus. And normally that like 5-second, 10-second break will be enough to let the pieces fall into place. Gum and candy are an additional way to relieve tension and stress, because you can chomp on the candy or the gum. That relieves the tension in your jaw so you're not clenching. Don't get shifty eyes. Even if you're not meaning to look towards other people in the class and what they're doing, it's going to draw the attention of the instructor, and they will be watching you like a hawk to make sure you're not cheating. And then we all know that when someone is watching us, that makes us even more anxious. You don't want to create that domino effect. When you're first given the exam, scan it. Find a problem you know you can do. Do this problem first. It will build your confidence. It will reinforce that you know what you are doing. And then you can move on to the next problem. I don't know who got it into most students' heads that you have to do the problems in order, but that's poppycock. Do the problems that you know how to do first. Skip around. You do not have to go in order. If you want to do problem 10 and then do problem 1 and then 5 and 7 and then go back and fill in the gaps, do so. But work through what you know for sure. And then normally there are context clues to help you with the other problems. It's really kind of weird that you can remember stuff on problems that you do not think you know just by completing the problems that you do know. Take your time. I know we're all under a time crunch, especially when we're on campus and you have the hour and 15 minutes or the 50 minutes, but take your time. Don't rush. You have to work quickly, but not so quickly that you will make mistakes. Don't worry about other people. Normally, students who turn in exams early or first usually didn't study, and those exams are typically the worst. If someone turns in an exam after 12 minutes, you can pretty much guarantee that they failed. That's just the way it is. Ask for scratch paper. Messy exams cause more anxiety. Messy exams are also hard to read or grade, which means you may not earn as many points as if your work was clear and your instructor could see exactly what you had written. And if you have enough scratch paper, you can work through one problem at a time. You can write the problem down on the scratch paper, complete it, and then you can either transfer the work over, or sometimes your instructor will say, if you did this on the scratch paper, write see scratch paper on the exam. I've already brought up the context clues from other problems. And in your head, don't do this out loud, but talk to yourself like your professor does. If you are attending classes, whether it's asynchronous or synchronous, your professor will walk you through how to do certain problems. What's my next step? What do you do? What are you going to make sure that you remember to do with this fraction? That type of thing. And if you are constantly going in to class and asking questions, your professor will give you more tips on how to approach these problems and how to walk through them. And you can ingrain that into your memory as ways to remember how to do the problems when you're doing the exam. We will cover additional study skills for reading in a different video.